We continue to cover gun violence in our city, particularly after this weekend's fatal shootings in the downtown core. Not too long ago, an 18-year-old was shot and killed here in Yonge and Dundas, not too far from our studio. So the question is, where are these deadly weapons coming from, and how are criminals getting their hands on them?
The fact is, anyone on the street who's in crime can very easily get a gun in Toronto, in Montreal, or Vancouver. In fact, almost any place in North America.
So how are guns getting into our city?
Unfortunately, criminals are endlessly resourceful at getting guns in or buying guns. Literally, it's very easy to get a gun.
This is similar to an AK-47.
We have many, many gangs operating organized crime in the underworld. The underworld provides things, services, and products, more importantly, that people want that are technically hard to get or illegal. That includes guns. I think the biggest threat to Canadian security vis-a-vis guns is, unfortunately, the proximity of the United States.
So the borders are a huge problem.
Well, legally in the States, which is, you know, in most of Canada, and Toronto is 90 miles away. Let's face it, that's a major security problem for a city like Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver, that we're so close to a gun-happy society.
So far this year, Canada Border Services says its agents have seized 10 guns from travelers coming through GTA airports and 109 guns from those crossing the U.S. border in southern Ontario. In that time, they've searched 415,000 travelers in those areas. The number of firearms seized annually by Border Patrol has been inconsistent over the years. In 2014, 182 of these weapons were confiscated at the border. 1 year later, that number more than doubled to 413. In 2016, there were 220 guns seized, and last year that number jumped to 347.
But you can only spot check these things. You can't check every piece of mail, everything crossing the border. It's just impossible.
What challenges do you think police and Border Patrol have when it comes to guns?
Well, the police in Toronto have an enormous challenge, and Border Patrol obviously, but nobody has the resources to deal with the amount of guns, the amount of criminal activity going on.
How are guns circulating in our city?
Once the guns are here, it's usually through a criminal gang or a criminal group, although often, you know, about half the guns are got through theft, street guns. Collectors have, you know, 10, 20, 30 guns in a collection, and they target that person.
Late last month, Toronto police carried out a raid where a significant number of firearms were recovered and over 1,000 charges were laid against who police say were members and associates of an organized crime group. Police targeted the alleged street gang said to be behind a number of shootings in the city.
This is a huge job, and it takes cops 6 months to a year or two to gather the evidence, so they can't just go and arrest everyone.
What are the challenges police are facing right now?
Oh, there's huge challenges. Fortunately, more and more money is going into the guns in gangs, task forces. I don't think we seriously crack down enough on guns. Now, there is a whole unit in Ontario, at least in Toronto, the Guns and Gangs Task Force, which and it's not by accident. It's called the Guns and Gangs because the things are interconnected.
And we did reach out to Toronto police asking for an interview or a comment on gun violence and these deadly weapons here in our city. We have not heard back, and we have not received a comment.